can change character, and characters influence and change events and lives. And, it's that point. So, okay, this is a story named House Tour, and I'll just read you the very beginning of it as an example of a story that does proceed from something real. It starts in the wine shop. And in it, my main character, Lynn, is not me. She's got a broken ankle and a broken heart. And she is the kind of dyspeptic, kind of depressed academic wife. And kind of a white wine liberal academic life. And anyway, she's put out with everything and everybody when this group of red hat ladies barge into her historic home. Her husband is a writer in residence, a playwright at the local university, and he has run off with yet another one of his students. But she has not yet had the nerve to tell anybody yet. She's just been buying a lot of wine. This is where we start. Have a happy holiday. The pretty girl in the wine shop is dressed in a red elf suit with green tights and high black boots. When she bends over, with green tights and high black boots, she carries the carton of wine to Lynn's car like it is nothing. When she bends over to put it in the trunk, her tiny skirt hikes up to show her red panties. This is the kind of outfit Lawrence would love, Damien Soul. A little kitsch, a little sax, a little irony. Everybody always thought Lawrence was such a genius, but actually he is so predictable as to be boring, really. Lynn recalls that black thong she found in his glove compartment years ago, back when they were first married. She didn't even know what it was. I'm just putty in their hands, he'd said, spreading his. Lawrence has soft, elegant hands with long, thin white fingers. He has never done one honest day's work in his life. Thanks, Erin, and Merry Christmas to you also, Lynn says, which comes out sounding weird, sort of like English is a second language. But never mind, this Erin girl will get it. She's a smart girl. She's never raised an eyebrow or said one word to Lynn about her solo wine purchases or asked where Lawrence is keeping himself these days. Guggenheim in Italy? Semester at NYU? Lynn has got the answers ready. And when she first broke her ankle, Erin brought a nice bottle of Viognier over to the house herself, a gift. Erin is nice. She's really nice, just like everybody else in this town who came by with casseroles or picked up Lynn's mail at the post office for her. This is the benefit of living in a village. Though there's a downside too, Lynn thinks darkly. Yes, indeed. For instance, there's no bypass. And right now the traffic is stopped dead, bumper to bumper. Where on earth are all these people coming from? Oh, hell, she remembers too late. It's the Christmas parade. Of course it is. Lynn finally gets home and puts the groceries down on the kitchen counter, then goes back out for the wine. She can hear the parade moving down Main Street in front of her house. The big bass drum sounds like it's beating inside her head. The carton of wine is not as heavy as she had imagined. She carries it carefully and sets it on top of her old dishwasher, now broken, sitting out in the middle of the hall. The new dishwasher lurks in its huge cardboard box in the kitchen, waiting for a plumber to come and install it. It seems likely that neither one of these people will ever come, that neither one of these things will ever happen. Lynn sets the carton of wine down on top of the old dishwasher in the hall. Well, okay, she's been drinking too much, or possibly she's not drinking enough. Who can say? Whose goddamn business is it anyway? She takes off her coat and drops it on the bench, then goes into the kitchen with the mail and throws it down on the kitchen table on top of yesterday's mail. Okay, she'll read it all at once. Then she'll pour herself a little glass of wine as a reward. The Pinot, perhaps. The doorbell rings. Lynn ignores it. She puts the real mail, Christmas cards and letters, into one stack The bill's in another. The year-end pleas for contributions into another. The bell rings again. Lynn starts slitting envelopes open with a paring knife. She reads a Christmas letter which begins, quote, "It's been a big year for the Hopgoods. What with 2 new grandchildren and an autumn trip to Tuscany for Bill's 60th. 60th what? Lynn is thinking furiously. She hates it when people leave off the noun. Suddenly, Lynn thinks she hears voices in the hall. By the time she stood up from the kitchen table and walked through the shadowy dining room, she's certain of it. Sure enough, the front door stands wide open, and a whole crowd of women wearing hats has clustered around in the doorway, in the hallway. "Hello, hello," one of them keeps calling. Another determined, even bossy voice says, "Well, let's get some light on this subject." And the hall light is switched on abruptly. The hats are red. The women stand blinking in the light. One, smaller and more frail than the others, leans on her walker. "Robin, I just don't know about this house." She sounds fretful. "Hello, hello," the tall brunette keeps screaming up the staircase. Lynn comes to stand in the dining room arch. "Can I help you?" she asks. "We're here to see the house," announces the very tan blonde standing closest to Lynn. "Well, this house is not on the tour," Lynn says. "I'm sorry." "Well, it certainly is. Tour site number 14. The brunette abandons the staircase and elbows her way through the group. "Look at this." Her dark eyes, set too close together, are snapping. She thrusts the brochure at Lynn. "Let me see that." Luckily, Lynn still has her reading glasses on. She examines the map, which has been badly drawn and badly printed. "You're looking for the Barclay School," she explains. "It's on the next corner. See, one more block up Main Street. It was a boarding school before the Civil War," she adds, trying to seem friendly. "But we already walked all the way up this hill," moans a pale woman whose red hat is as round as her face. "Well, I'm sorry, but I can't help that," Lynn says firmly. "As you can see, this house is not on the tour. Just look at it." "But look at poor little Melissa. She's about to die." She pushed her walker all the way up here. The plump woman points at the older one, who has now turned her walker into a little chair and sits upon it, breathing hard. "If we could just stay for a minute," Melissa begs softly. "So when was this house built?" the tan one asks. Her cap of blonde hair sits on her head like a mushroom. "You ought to be on the tour anyway. This is a lot better than the last house we went in." "We're not, though," Lynn says hopelessly. We're not on the tour." But now they are all milling about, widening their area, peeping into other doors that open off the central hall. "That's a beautiful sideboard." Several here pass Lynn into the dining room. "Rita, come look at this. You will not believe such a mess." This is true. The mushroom blonde peers into Lawrence's study, where no one is ever allowed. "Why, it's just a pig pen in here." Suddenly, Lynn can't help it. She starts laughing uncontrollably. "Now, come on." The tall brunette nudges Lynn. "Can't you let us look around for just a minute? After all," she adds reasonably, "we're already here." "Well, you certainly are," Lynn hears herself say then. "Okay, what the hell? Why the hell not?" Some of the ladies glance at each other, suddenly wary when she says hell. But Lynn continues, "Come on, sure. I'll give you your own personal house tour. Why not? I haven't got one other single goddamn thing to do today. Let's start with the pig pen." Anyway, I had a lot of fun with this, and what it turns out to be, of course, is, when you show anybody, when you look around anybody's own real house, I mean, everything there is expressive of who you are. you know, and so when Lynn is showing them around, it's like a review of her own life and her own marriage and her own family and so on. And then she takes them back, and when they get to the wine on the dishwasher, this really happened too, one of the red hat ladies said, well, who drinks? And I said, well, I do, and I bet y'all would like a little glass of wine, wouldn't you? Because it's just so cold out there. So we all went in and had a little glass of wine, and that's what they do in the story. But in the story, the missing husband is found sitting at the table there, going through the mail. And now I'll read you just a little bit, again, from something real that happened. This was my own real life, but a lot of times what happens to me is I will simply, if I hadn't been a writer, I would love to have been a psychiatric social worker. I don't know if I'm smart enough to be a psychiatrist, but something like that. And because the people are what really, really interests me. And so many times I will be in a situation where I'll see somebody that or just have a moment's conversation with somebody I'm so interested in, and then the circumstances of my life are such I never see them again. So I very often write their story because I can't stand it, that I'll never see them again and know what happens to them. So this is one example of that. This is a story named The Southern Cross, and I wrote it because my husband and I was writing a travel piece for American Airlines magazine, and my husband and I were on a trip in the Caribbean. And we were in the Grenadines, and we were on a little island named Mayreau, where we were staying in a small guest house, and then for dinner we were told to walk through the jungle, and we would come to this Half Moon Bay. And there is this restaurant there which just looks like an old house, and it's got, Christmas lights kind of strung through the palm trees, and it's got chickens walking all around. And it's a very glamorous and exotic locale. And most of the other people there did not walk through the jungle. They came off of yachts in dinghies. And so they were coming in on these dinghies to the restaurant. And they were just immediately, as a novelist, I'm fascinated by these people because I've never seen any people like them except in magazines. And they were sort of very flashy people off these yachts. Mostly they were sort of Euro trash people, I would say, and of many different nationalities, and they were gorgeous. And so I was just dying to overhear several different conversations, but particularly one group that was right over here. And I could not figure this group out. There were three really awful-looking guys, I thought, that were kind of, they were like real built up. They were just kind of buff, like they worked out all the time. And they had sort of sculpture-cut hair, and they had, gold chains and stuff, and I just thought that they were maybe some group of terrible developers from Atlanta. And I wasn't sure. That's what they looked like to me. So, but they had with them the most beautiful girl that I've ever seen outside of a movie or, something that was supposed to feature beauty. But this was an actual real person, and she was so elegant. She was tall, and she was thin. She was just beautifully elegant. And I conceived the idea that she was French because she was so elegant. But I could not figure out what she was doing with these guys, and three of them. So anyway, she gets up to go to the bathroom, and of course I go too. And we go out to this porta potty in the jungle, and when she comes in, she's standing there smoking this very elegant, long, kind of brown cigarette, which I think all proves that she's French. So I say, how you'll talk to somebody if you don't speak their language, but you want to act like you sort of do? I said, hello. and I said to her, where are you from? And she just looked at me and she said, Hazard, Kentucky.